Welcome to the Honest Health Podcast with your host, Jeffrey Burke. Honest Health brings you the brightest minds in the natural products industry, as well as athletes and entertainers. Jeff will keep you entertained and informed while educating on how to be successful on your healthy journeys. Now, here's your host, Jeffrey Burke.
Hello and welcome back to the Honest Health Podcast. My name is Jeffrey Burke. I'm so glad you took the time to be here today. This is a platform bringing you the most up-to-date, groundbreaking information from some of the best minds in the natural products industry, as well as some important voices outside the industry as well. All of them with messages to tell, stories to share, and I think you're going to enjoy every one of them. If you like what we're doing, please consider giving us a like, a share, or subscribe. Better yet, let's do all three of them. I think you're going to love this chat today. You're going to really enjoy my guest. My guest today is Todd Vande Hei, and we're going to be talking about some things that are absolutely incredible. He has found a way to combine so many incredible attributes. His career has covered so many issues that benefit the lives of all who get the pleasure to work with him. From product development, sales, and operation to creating a performance-driven healthcare company with a team of experts, including medical doctors, nutritionists, naturopaths, chiropractors, and strength coaches. Every patient is treated with the utmost respect, and each patient is treated on an individual basis. This is not a one-box-fits-all situation. Help me welcome my guest. Hey, Todd, how are you?
Doing great, Jeff. Thanks for having me. Wow, you did such a great introduction. I'm going to take this and steal it from you. I don't think I could have done a better job myself. Thank you.
Oh, and also I forgot to mention you are a podcast host as well.
Mm-hmm.
You are very visible out there, which I think is incredible. And I feel very blessed to have you here today. Thank you.
Thank you. It's good to be with you. Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about let's talk about the industry. You know, you've been in it for a while. I've been in it for a very long while. There's been a lot of changes. It seems like there's changes all the time, changes in the way we think about being healthy to the way that we become healthy. I think there's just been a lot of changes. You're standing outside looking in. What do you see different?
Well, I got to tell you, it's shocking to hear people in Washington, D.C. Use the same language that I would use when I'm talking about the human body and things like health problems and the American people and actually the application of solutions that make sense, like not just having your doctors say you should exercise, but utilizing things like HSA accounts to pay for some of these things. So the landscape is very much changing, and it seemed like 15 years later, all of a sudden it happened overnight for me, anyway, because I've been in the thick of things up to my neck in attempting to deliver health in a way in which I think our bodies are designed to receive it, which is mostly by sleeping well and good quality movement and exercise and high quality foods and things of that nature. And then the periodic intervention with things like antibiotics or some other prescription, which, by the way, I'm not against. Matter of fact, they've saved my life a few times. But things are changing now to get more into, I would say, practical application of these concepts that seem to be sort of where all the kooks hung out. You know, the topics, even things like hormone replacement therapy, which for women have been taboo since the early 2000s, and now those those issues are cropping up as something that's been horrific for women's health. And I remember maybe 7 years ago, when I started TRT, and I was open about it and talked about it, and that was a big shock. And now, of course, that's become somewhat streamlined. So the world is changing a lot, and I think it's changing in a very good way. And I'm anticipating or bracing myself a little bit for potentially an increase in confusion among consumers in this kind of interim transitionary period. But generally speaking, I think the health of America is heading in the right direction, even though it seems a little bit scary, I think, to most.
You know, I've seen dramatic changes. I go back way to back in 1980, 81, when I was just first starting, which was 100 years ago. I remember that doctors from UCLA would actually come to the health food store in the Westwood area after hours to the back door to get their vitamins because they didn't want their colleagues to see them inside the health food
Wow,
store.
really?
So things have changed.
Interesting.
They had secret knocks for the back door. I mean, come on. It was like doing drug deals, but it was vitamins. And it was just a different thing. And now today I'm lecturing and teaching and talking to doctors at hospitals because they want to know more about the alternatives. And it's funny, most of them will start the conversation. They'll say, this is for me. Not for my patients, but this is for me, and or my wife or my kids or whatever. But I have seen a dramatic change. I'm hoping that we're heading in the right direction. We have to do something. We have to start doing something because we are extremely unhealthy, and most people wait for something to break down before they do anything. And the preventive part of it is just struggling.
Yeah, we've pretty much broken down. I mean, it's a mess. Not just for adults, but for kids too. I mean, kids and obesity and type 2 diabetes, and we're creating these things. It's just so shocking and so sad. I mean, we have 16-year-old boys come in and with their 40-year-old fathers, and we run labs on everybody that comes through the Stark ecosystem. Has a bunch of labs run, and one of them is a sex hormone panel. And I don't know about you, but I didn't have my sex hormones tested until I was like 49, 48. It just was uncommon, certainly with a family practice doctor. And we see testosterone levels of young men lower than their older fathers, which is so scary. I mean, I don't know about you, but I remember what it was like to be 18, vaguely. It's a long time ago, or 22 or 25. I mean, you couldn't stop thinking about sex. It was your entire life and all of your goals kind of spun around the idea of having sex. And that's how we're designed. And it's not like that. As a matter of fact, I did some research recently on statistical changes around young boys or young men, so up to the age of 25, and car accidents, because I remember how I used to drive. I remember the just a constant drive to be bigger than myself. It was sort of like what it felt on the inside, and that manifests itself in piss poor driving behavior and zigzagging through traffic and driving too fast and running the orange lights, and the number of car accidents of young men have dropped by roughly 35% since then. And I also did some research around teenage pregnancies, because if you think about what's in the mind of a young man, and I don't want to know what it's like to be in the mind of a young woman, but in the mind of a young man, and everything is so sort of frenetic, and a lot of it is connected to sex hormones that you're not yet used to, that sort of they overcome you, and it affects your behavior. And so that's why insurance companies charge a lot for insuring 20-year-old men. But it's not a big deal anymore. And it was why it was so scary. Teenage pregnancies were so scary back then, for at least my parents' generation, and they're not happening to the same degree any longer. It points to young men just being unhealthy.
Unhealthy.
Right? And not just,
their drives are down. Their testosterone levels are down. They don't have the no fear attitude that we when we were kids. Oh my Lord.
Yeah, they don't want to go for it, or whatever it is, like they don't want to even work full time.
No.
So I see this a lot in my business, because we employ a lot. We have a lot of younger hourly employees, and they don't behave the same way. They don't have the same desire. They want to live at home for a lot longer. I mean, maybe this is a Midwestern 1990 white boy thing, but I wanted to get the hell out and get some elbow room and put a mark on the world when I was in my early 20s. And we just don't see that anymore. It's a giant shift in behavior. And I believe a lot of it has to do with the environment. A lot of it has to do with the things in which young men are exposed to, like, having all of the world's porn in your pocket at all times, and nobody needs to know about it, because you can have access to this anywhere. And the foods that they're eating, and so they're just generally unhealthy. Plastics in your testes. I mean, it's a disaster. It really is a disaster. It's scary.
It is scary. I left when I was 17. I'm from the Midwest. I could not wait to get out and blaze my own trail.
Right.
Sitting at
Yeah.
home, living in a basement, I couldn't even imagine that. And
Uh-huh.
I was done. I was 20. I was in Los Angeles, and I started in this industry when I was 20, and I couldn't wait. I didn't know what I was doing, but I was going to do it. And when by the time I was 21, I was running a 180 store chain. I didn't know what I was doing. I was 20, just turning 21, but I loved it, and I know hormones were high, energy was high. I pushed everything to the limit, balls out to the wall. Let's go. I wanted to do it. And I see these kids today, and they're kids of friends of mine, and I'm just like, does he ever go outside?
Yeah.
I mean, does he? No. We had no technology.
Yeah, that's a great point. Never outside, socializing by sitting still in front of a computer, playing video games together. So there's some social aspect. This is what I see with that. This is what I've seen with my kids to a lesser degree, because I'm like looking over their shoulder like, hey, this is what's actually happening to you. This is kind of scary. Just a complete disconnect from nature certainly is there. Anyway, if they'd only be as what's the song from like the 40s? What's the matter with kids today? Something like that. If they only could be like we were, what's the matter with kids? I mean, that's always been in the back of my mind too. Like, am I just getting old? Am I just being hypercritical of younger people because I see the world through an older person's set of eyes? But this is different. I really strongly do believe that this is a different wave of young people, and much of it is health related, and it springs right into mental illness issues as well, which you can certainly see in the statistics. Also connected to metabolic syndrome because of the lifestyle implications of how they're spending their lives, including staying up until 2 a.m, playing Xbox or looking at porn, and all the health related implications that can have on the development of a 17-year-old boy. I mean, it's really rough. This is so doom and gloom. I'm a happy guy in general. I'm optimistic.
It's also reality.
It's reality
and doom and gloom can be tied together, but it also gives people the idea, and maybe it's a wake-up call that we all know that we have to be doing something different. When I first started in this industry, we would never talk to someone about taking calcium or minerals for their bones unless they were well into their 60s. We never talked about any of that stuff. We never talked about younger people with low testosterone or joint problems or cholesterol or anything else. It was always the older generation. Now today, I mean, I've got kids going in for physicals, and I say kids because I'm old, and they're in their 20s and going into their 30s, and they've got the bones of an 80-year-old, or they've got cardiovascular disease and diabetes and high blood pressure. They've got the trio. And I'm thinking, they've got to do something about it. But the problem is the idea of medication as a fix-all has really dug deep. So people will say, isn't there a medication for that? And they just give in. I mean, I didn't want to give in. I fought it as hard as I could every time.
Yeah. I mean, what has to be present, in my opinion, for exceptional health or even baseline health for a young person is effort. There has to be a certain degree of effort. And if you remove the need or the desire for effort, and that can be sex hormones or lack of sleep, or really that one leads to the other, you're going to end up with someone that's just not healthy, someone that's quite sick. And because they just don't have the desire to get out and move and go outside and socialize and, chase each other like young people do. It's sad.
I was reminiscing with a friend of mine that I grew up with in the Midwest, and I said, do you remember that our parents would kick us out of the house in the morning? And we had to be home before the light at the end of the street went on. They didn't know where we were all day.
Yeah.
We had to have our butt on the porch by dusk. And they said, yeah. And I said, I can't, you can't even get the kids outside anymore today. You couldn't get us in the house. We didn't want to be in. We wanted to be out. So it's a complete reversal of mind thought, today.
It is. It's very strange. I remember the same thing. I remember hearing my dad yell up the street for us to come home for dinner.
Yep.
And I was bummed. I'm like, sorry guys, I gotta go. We're playing basketball or whatever.
Sure.
And we had to stop playing because we wanted to play all day. And some of this also is, well, it's not also, but of course, tightly related to technology. I mean, I don't know if you remember Atari. I remember getting the first Atari, whatever it's called that you plug into the TV. And and my brother and I, who's a year and a half older, so we're, in the same generation, he and I would play Pong, and we would play Pong for like I don't know, maybe it felt like 15 minutes, maybe because we were so young, it was more like 5 minutes. It didn't encapture you. Like
No.
you weren't, you know, in the moment with Pong. There was no addictive qualities to it because it kind of sucked. It was
Yeah.
like just a break from being physical, I guess. Like, drink some water, have a little snack, play some Pong, go back outside for most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And the games today are so you get so absorbed in them. And my experience is about 15 years old when I was retired at the time, and my wife bought me an Xbox as some kind of, like, I don't know, retirement gift or something. And I played it, and I would stay up all night and play these race games or first person shooter games, and you just get so into it. And I remember midnight being like, hey, this is so stupid. Like, I'm wasting so much time. And I could feel, I didn't understand the what was happening inside of my body biologically speaking, but now I do. But I felt it, like the massive surge of cortisol for extended periods of time. My eyes hurt. They
Yeah.
were bloodshot. I had a headache. My joints ached. I mean, it was so like, I was just beat up, but physically I felt like I needed to run around the block, and so that whole thing, imagine that occurring in a young person that's not fully developed for a decade, or maybe for the rest of their life, because
Maybe.
this is what they grow up with to help take a break from the realities of life. And instead of, going to a party with a bunch of people or doing something else that young people do.
We were kids, we get in trouble, we get sent to our room. And way back then, there was nothing to do in our room.
Yeah.
I mean, you had like what?
That's
I had like Lincoln Logs, Tinker Toys, Spirograph, Light Bright, wood burning kit. I mean, we didn't have anything. Today,
a wood burning kit. That's funny.
With the 6-inch cord that kind of held you right to the wall. But today with kids, that's just location, because they have computers and iPads and phones, and it's just, okay, I'll move from the living room to the bedroom. No big deal. We didn't have any of that. So we kept it kind of clean because we didn't want to be stuck in our room. We wanted to be outside, to your point. So
yeah. And this certainly isn't relegated to young people. This is what older people experience as well. It's just, I don't know, it's a little bit less sad because you're older and your prefrontal cortex is fully developed, and you have all this experience, and you can recognize that, oh, what I'm doing in my body isn't what I used to do to it, and this is the outcome. I feel like shit, and I'm struggling with whatever problems I have, orthopedic issues or type 2 diabetes, and I just can't think as clearly as I used to think. Well, it's probably my fault, and it's possible to course correct, but it still definitely affects older people. And if we all are experiencing the same problems, going to bed as an older person and the desire to check your email at 10:30 at night, and you get something about losing a big account, and your heart is racing until 3 o'clock in the morning, and then you get up at 6 and you're like, oh, I'm screwed. And you drink a bunch of coffee, and then you drink more coffee throughout the rest of the day, and you eke your way through the day, and you certainly don't exercise because you're freaking exhausted. And this goes on over and over and over again. And this is the experience that young people have, and certainly tightly correlated to why Americans are so unhealthy. And so this is the thing that I contemplate a lot. Like the kid thing, I'm a parent. My kids they've been listening to me on my soapbox for years about this stuff. And that it's not like they're disconnected from what it's like to be a child in America. But they recognize that they have to put some bumpers on it. Like they have to govern themselves to a certain degree greater than their friends are. They can't just sit in front of their computer in their rooms 7 days a week. They get out, they go outside, they do things physical, they exercise at Stark, by the way. And so they're unique in that regard. But I spend much of my work week experimenting with and trying to figure out ways in which someone like you and I can do the things that we have to do. Like, let's say you're a game designer for Xbox, and so you've got to sit still for a long period of time. How are you going to be healthy? The idea isn't we're going to give up our work and become farmers or hunter gatherers. We can't. we have to live in what our world is like today. The idea though is, or the general strategy is, how do you live in such a way that you can do the modern day work we have to do and have relationships with people the way we need to have relationships with people, but be creative enough so your body thinks it's being used just like it was used 10,000 years ago. That's the general concept. So how is that? Well, we have to be outside sometime. I mean, if you're from Minnesota like me, or you're in Minnesota right now, and spring's starting to roll out, it's a lot easier than what it was in February. And so you just have to struggle through that time in February. But how do you move your body, not in an aggressive way, just keep it moving? How do you manage stress? And these are all doable concepts, but you have to start getting really creative. Like if you walk into an office right here in Tustin, California, you'll see, giant pools of desks, maybe cubicles. I don't know if offices still have cubicles, but my point is that people are sitting down and they're working and they've got a computer, and generally no more phones. It's all done through their laptops. And so how do you do it? You gotta raise your desk up. Ideally, your desk goes up and down so you can sit some hours of the day and you can stand some hours of the day. You can't afford to sit all day long like you and I are sitting right now, because your psoas gets tight, your hip flexors get really tight. And what most people don't understand is when that happens, and by the way, sidebar, this is a great trend. Like, you remember in the 80s, women were supposed to be super, super skinny, and so were men. And now young girls in particular, and also it's bleeding to the young male population. They all want to have bigger butts. And that's one of my favorite things about the generation. Not looking at their butts, I'm not trying to be creepy, but the fact that they want that is a really good
Yes.
thing, and they're going to lift weights to do it is a really good thing, because what happens when you sit all day long is that hip flexor shuts down or shortens, and it turns off your glute med, because your brain is like, I don't need that. I don't need to stand up and balance and do the things that particular muscle uses. So I'm going to conserve energy. And over time, you end up with a belly that sticks out because of the new visceral adipose tissue that builds up over many years. Or you can do it in a month, frankly, if you're really dedicated to it. And your glutes that basically atrophy over many years. And you end up sort of like the opposite, where a young person has a big butt and a flat belly, an older person has a big belly and a flat butt. And you're starting to see that in young people today if they're not intentional around how they use their body. So the question is, well, how do you get back to these youthful features, not just because of the aesthetics of it, but because of the practical nature of it, because it's going to enable you to live longer with a higher quality of life. And you merely have to use your body like a hunter-gatherer. So that means you're walking around. But there are ways in which to walk around. Like, if back to your job designing the new version of Call of Duty for Xbox, you have to walk at your desk while you're doing it. You can get a treadmill desk. You can get a desk that's upright. And there's no getting 15,000 steps a day as a program designer is totally possible. It's a new way of, you have to develop that skill because you're going to be clicking away on your keyboard while you're walking. But 15,000 steps a day is like 8 miles, and that's what our bodies potentially used to do. Or 10,000 steps, which is like 6 miles. If I may be a little off on the, hopefully your listeners aren't mathematicians, but I may be a little off on my math. But the point being is, you only have to work or walk briskly for about 2.5 hours a day, and you'll get between 10 and 15,000 steps a day. And that only means that when you're working, you need about 2 hours of those 2.5 hours a day to actually be moving while you're working. And that's one modern day hack that is critically important for people that want to be healthy, not just orthopedically healthy, but mentally healthy from a body composition standpoint, cardiovascular health, even your hormones, your ability to recover, your ability to get into deep sleep, your detoxification pathways, even because you perspire a little bit when you're moving a lot, your gut health, intestinal motility, something that a lot of uh, uh, perimenopausal and menopausal and postmenopausal women complain about is constipation, and really they need to drink some water and move much more, and find a way in which to make moving easier, and that helps tremendously. Also helps with what's the term for diversity in your gut? uh, Gut microbiome diversity, I think. just by exercise improves that. And so it's interesting at Stark because our world revolves around exercise quite a bit, and not like early CrossFit gyms, like go, push yourself to puking. Although we used to do that in the early days. Today we're much more scientific about it, but everybody here moves a lot. Not, most of the time, not aggressively, just walking, but sometimes aggressively, like 3 or 4 times a week of strength training. And we don't have gut health issues like the general public does across the United States because there are people and our staff, they're just moving a lot.
Let me ask you a question. With your company, are you seeing today more women or more men? And what's the age bracket of the people that are coming in that are ready for and are asking for help?
That's a great question. So it used to be about 80% men,
Mm,
and there's no strategy behind that. But now it's about 60-40.
okay.
It merely is the parties of a community that are most interested in us at the beginning happen to be business leaders because they see the most financial value attached to their ability to perform better, and how their body is composed, or their cardiovascular health if they're at cardiovascular risk. Those things can be giant barriers between where they are and where they want to be in their career. So they tend to be the early entrants, and it's just statistically speaking a little bit higher weighted to men than women. And then they bring their families in, and that's when we have the influx of more women. So that's kind of what it's made up of. We see the issues across the board. And back to your question about the age range, it used to be quite a bit older, but now we're seeing the children of our CEOs, because the children are so much worse off than when I started Stark almost 15 years ago. And so we have a broad range of ranging from as young as I think maybe 12 to as old as 82-ish, somewhere thereabouts. And I think we're going to continue to see the range increase, particularly as humans, at least within our ecosystem, we believe this to be a definite outcome of being at Stark, is they'll live longer as a result of the combination of new technologies and just being optimally healthy. We're sort of like in the longevity space, but we're the foundation of longevity. And by that, I mean, if you go get stem cell therapy, but you're not doing the foundational lifestyle, exercise, nutrition, stress management, and hormone type management stuff, the ancillary tools that can enable you to have a longer, healthy life, they just don't work very well. But then you take those tools and you drop them into a healthy person, someone's that got the fundamentals really well down, and it's transformative. And so we believe that our population is going to live a lot longer than our current oldest member at 82 or 83.
You said something earlier that really sparked my brain a little bit, and it was the idea of doing blood work and doing blood workups on everybody that comes in, because this is something that it makes the best sense in the world. Nobody is hardly doing it, and the thing about it is it keeps you from doing everything and going into it blindly. I mean, you know more about what you're doing. It's easier to create your journey in a
Hmm.
productive way rather than trying to guess your way through it.
Yeah, this is such an interesting thing about people and health in general, I think, especially when you throw exercise in. People believe that if you go to the gym and you go there 5 days a week, you're going to come out better, and that's really not the case. Whether it's spending an hour on an elliptical or 30 minutes on a treadmill or lifting weights, these are modern day versions of doing things that our bodies just did naturally outside at one point.
Mhm.
And in particular, strength training is very much a man-made version of just moving around and picking up heavy things out in the wilderness. But it's done with a perfectly balanced 1-inch cylindrically shaped, barbell, for example, with weights that go on both sides of it that are also perfectly balanced. And so you can grip it perfectly. It's perfectly balanced. There's nothing awkward about it. And the outcome, because of those things, because some of those unnatural characteristics exist, it can be so much more powerful than doing things out in the wilderness, like climbing a rock wall, that you can create in a very short period of time serious orthopedic problems because it works. Like if you just bench pressed every day for 5 days a week and you did it in such a way that was effective, you're going to overdevelop parts of your body that shouldn't be, and you're going to underdevelop, or you're going to
Yep.
completely miss the other parts of your body that are going to struggle, and you're going to create problems with your neck and your shoulders and maybe your thoracic spine and others. The same thing with any lower body. Actually, you use the leg extension machine and you overdevelop your quadriceps. I mean, you're going to really create some serious problems. And so I don't know how I got off on this tangent, but these are great tools. I think people in general, though, need to really pay close attention to whether or not they're doing something that's right tactically to give them the right outcomes. And if you do something like strength training really well, you're going to correct a lot of your orthopedic problems just through proper strength training. You're going to stand more upright. You're going to be stronger in the right areas. Your body's going to perform and feel like a younger person's. But that's generally not the outcome, because people just think that it's a box to check, and it's an important box to check, but you have to be really thoughtful about it. And this is back to testing. The testing should indicate that you're heading in the right direction, and that's partly why I put this in place at the beginning of the business, because it is like running a business. I mean, running the health of your body is like running a business. What we know today about the human body is going to be totally different than in just a year, and so we don't even know everything about it. And so going back to my previous career, we would never throw out an investment and just cross our fingers and then not measure what the heck happened, and then just do it again and do it again for like a decade. And that's how people approach exercise. They
It's
did have
true.
really no actual idea. Is this working? And if it is working, to what degree? And how can I get it to work better? But when it comes to like running your marketing budget in a business, I mean, every little tiny factor is measured and solved for and slightly adjusted on a very regular basis to make sure that over a 10-year period, the company grows. And so over a 10-year period with your body should improve if you're doing the right things. And you do not know if you don't measure. And there are great and easily accessed tools of measurement that include labs. It's just one form. And we do hundreds of labs on people on a very regular basis, generally once a quarter, because the lab results, just like looking at your marketing scorecard, that's only a point in time. So you want little tiny points in time, or you want
Yep.
points in time that are fairly frequent. So once a quarter is about right for most lab markers, not all. Some we do once every 6 months, and sometimes we do them weekly, depending on the circumstances. But my point is that we're grabbing data points that we can plot on a trend line, and you can see what direction you're heading. And if you're heading the right direction, it's high fives all around, no matter where you start, because over a long enough period of time, you're going to be optimal in that one particular category. And it's the same thing for body composition. So for body composition, we use a DEXA scan, which is it's the gold standard for this. Everything else is crap, frankly. And we'll put everybody that's the recipient or the patient of on an emotional roller coaster, because you'll come in and you'll be like, yeah, I crushed it. I lost, 15 pounds of fat or whatever. And then you come back and you're like, I just put 18 pounds of fat on after the next one. And you're like, what the heck is the truth? The fact is probably neither of those data points are true. And so for that particular test, we went all in, and we go through the whole nightmare of having a radiology supervisor and a room that's inspected by the state of California. And it's very expensive equipment. You have to have a DEXA tech actually run it, but the information is amazing. And bone mineral density as well. I mean, everybody, I think past the age of 40, this is my non-medical opinion, should be taking a look at their bone mineral density. And even younger, as we're starting to see problems, just grab a point in time. How are you doing? And then measure it sometime in the future. That one doesn't change very quickly, so we don't do it as frequently. And then your orthopedic health. Like, how often are people actually getting a sense of how well they move in all their major joints, from their neck all the way to their ankles? Probably never for most people. And we do that on a regular basis to understand, like, is the training program working? Is the orthopedic work that we do with our chiropractic team, the mobility services that we're providing, are we heading in the right direction? Is the student doing their homework? Because if you want to be able to move better for you in a year than you are right now, That's no joke. Like, that is really hard because we're getting older. So how do you not just prevent the loss of that movement? How do you improve upon it is the question. That, which is what longevity springs out of. Again, at least the most basic fundamental parts of longevity, or tactics surrounding longevity. So
I think
measurement's important.
I think it is, and I agree with everything that you're saying. It makes the most perfect amount of sense. I think one of the hardest things that we face today is recreating a mindset that allows us to be able to think of exercise and movement as something positive and not a punishment, because there's been such negativity around exercise
Yeah.
that people actually have to convince themselves to become healthy and active. And that is one of the biggest devastating things that I've seen that has changed. You like back it up to when we were kids, you couldn't keep us down. Today, we can't get people motivated. And one of the biggest motivators is disease and a bad health checkup, which is so sad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, it's interesting that we're talking about thinking about things like exercise in a negative way. There's actually, it's not, in my opinion, it's not bad to think about, like, I don't actually like to exercise. I get a little bit like, I want to do other things that really are more interesting to me, or are good for business. Like, I'm going to push the business forward. I'm going to accomplish something. And I have to stop and because I'm a lot older now. I have to spend a half an hour just getting ready, like warming up and stretching. And I used to just, go to the gym and start. There was no thought put into that. And so and then I've got a training session that's an hour. It's a lot of time. And I can't do it every day. I don't do it every day, but it's a big, it doesn't come easily to me. Let's just put it that way. However, doing things that you don't want to do, this is an important concept, I think, for people to understand. Doing things that you don't want to do and doing them anyway, like just showing up and forcing yourself to do it, that develops a part of your brain called the anterior midcingulate cortex. I may have butchered that. It's like right behind the cerebral cortex, like right in the middle of your brain, and it gets smaller if you're just chilling and eating Doritos and playing Xbox and looking at porn, and masturbating your way into oblivion.
And in that order.
Gets smaller. In that order, yeah. Boom, 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 right in a row, over and over and over again. And smoking pot and drinking, which is on the decline, but marijuana use is on the is rising in use, especially for young people. So if you do things that you don't want to do and you make yourself do them, over time, it becomes easier for you to do things that you don't want to do. And so recognizing that you don't want to go to 24-hour fitness and get that cardio session in, and doing it anyway, recognizing that's a good thing for you to feel it and do it anyway. And it's a part of your overall health development to get yourself to do it, I think is important to be aware of that. Like, just feeling the pain of not wanting to do it and then doing it anyway, in and of itself is a form of exercise. It's your brain. It's not from the neck down, which is what most people think about it in terms of exercise. I don't see that there's any difference between my mind and my body, my brain and my cardiovascular health. It is all one interconnected system. And so you have to be aware of both. Matter of fact, that's why on a regular basis, I have a special cold plunge that actually forms ice on the top, and I have to smash my way through the ice to get into it. And it makes it harder to get myself to do it, because I'm smashing ice and getting into icy water. It's freaking scary, right? And so doing that on a regular basis makes me intellectually and emotionally stronger. And that makes doing hard things in the gym also easier.
One thing you just said that sparked something with me. I had a friend of mine, she was an athlete for many years, and she said, the one feeling in my world that I would love to be able to bottle and share with everyone is the feeling of walking to my car after a great workout. That feeling, I'd like to put that in the water supply and teach people what that feels like. She goes, because I don't like going, and I do it because I'm there. But when I'm leaving, I feel so good. And I think there's a lot to that.
Yeah, I mean, that's a leadership challenge. When you're leading people, groups of people, or an individual from a place where they are to a place where they maybe describe that they want to be, but they don't really know what that feels like. You have to just a good leadership is sharing that concept, like I just described about the anterior mid-cingulate cortex, giving people reason to want to do it, emotional connection to the outcome, because they don't know what that outcome is personally yet. They don't have it in their body. They can't experience it. They don't remember it because they haven't been there. And so your friend, I love that concept. Push people, lead people, get them to try, get them to do it on a regular basis, build your own community. Like, it's very, very difficult to do what I'm describing alone. But when you have a group of people and you're weaker that day and your 5 closest buddies are strong, they'll drag you through it. And then you get to have that walk to the car and be like, oh, I feel great. I'm so glad I did this.
It's a great feeling, and I think that it's something that we have to remember. First of all, we need to know that we need to do something. We need to know the importance of it. We also need to not be afraid to ask questions and reach out for help and support and guidance. And if you know that you failed it on your own, that it's definitely time to reach out for guidance.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad that you have a opportunity for people to be able to get the structure that they may need, and I think that that's amazing. And I do thank you for what you're doing. I think it's real important. But we do need to address one thing. I want people to know that you are not plugged into the wall there by that cord on your arm, that you're actually, because I mean, you were going like this. I want them to know that you're not plugged in. You're doing an IV. So I just want.
Yeah, I'm doing an IV. Yeah.
Okay. I just want people to know you're not electronically connected to the wall.
Yeah, I have been called a cyborg, but yeah, I am not plugged in.
I want to thank you so much for this. This is just, I've been looking forward to this, and I really do appreciate your time. Would you mind leaving everybody with maybe a Todd thought of the day?
A Todd thought of the day. Yes. This is one of my latest favorites, and it's a bit of a creative stretch, but I believe that you should think about protein like the new Ozempic. And let me explain why.
Please.
Because if our forefathers, who moved as much as we had been talking about, if they only had access to, let's say, elk, which has 0 fat on it, it's all protein, like something like an 8-ounce elk steak, because there's just no fat on it, has something like 80 grams of protein, they would have starved to death. And why would they have starved to death? Because the thermic effect of protein is ridiculous. It's very inefficient. If you eat 100 calories of protein, you're going to use 30 calories just to process it. And so your body has to work so hard. And if you think about humans today, where we don't move as much as our ancestors, the ideal food is more protein that our ancestors ate. We don't need as much carbohydrate energy as they needed. So I would drop that. I would have everybody do some research, think about how they can incorporate more high quality protein into their lives. And if they do, they're going to see some percentage improvement in their overall health. And it will range from body composition to cardiovascular health and strength, and have some impact on hormones. It could have some impact on sleep and recovery and stress and detoxification pathways and gut health, and certainly the micronutrients that spring from it, because it's so nutrient dense. Orthopedic health, you'll be able to recover better with a higher protein diet, and certainly your mental well-being.
Wow. That's one of the best thoughts I've had in a long time, so I appreciate that. I want to thank everybody for being here today. I hope you enjoyed this wonderful chat with Todd. It's going to be good information for everybody you could pass on to your friends. I hope you'll tell your friends to stop by, and remember, leave a like, a share, a subscribe, and all that wonderful stuff as we bring you all this good information about getting healthy, being healthy, and staying healthy from the wonderful minds inside and outside the industry. Todd, thank you for being here today. It was a real pleasure.
It's my pleasure. Yeah.
Be well, my friend.
Okay.
Stay tuned for more information from the Honest Health Podcast with Jeffrey Burke. And make sure to check back often for interviews and conversations from the guests we all want to hear from. I'm John the Announcer. Thanks for listening.